people. I hope you guys are feeling good, feeling great. I know I am, and welcome back to iVibe TV, the place where you can catch a vibe and be a vibe. And so you already know why I'm here, is to drop that encouragement, that empowerment, to help you live free and to live out the total fulfillment of your purpose in total confidence, okay? And so today I want to talk about protecting your peace and not your point, because sometimes as people, I'm talking with my hands a lot, but I love it. You know, sometimes as human beings, we have this tendency to want to prove our point versus protecting our peace. And that is where we can get so angry, we can be so upset, we can be jealous, we can get in unforgiveness, we can have envy, whatever that looks like, right? It's a total negative emotion that's not even associated with how you want to feel or how you expect it for your conversations to turn out. And so that's why you really have to pick your battles. Like, you have to choose your battles on what you're going to respond to, what you're not going to respond to, what you're going to give your ear over to, and what you're not going to give your ear over to, what you want to look at and how you're going to look at it, what's your perspective, what's your perception on the situation or the circumstance or whatever the case may be. But you already know, like, peace is an inner component. It's an inner component of our daily living. It's a place of peace is a place. Like, it's a safe place, a place that we're supposed to live in every day. You know, and not to say that you won't be affected by some things. I'm not being naive and saying that, oh yeah, you're just gonna walk around here like, oh my God, I'm just such in this fantasy world. But at the same time, when it comes to situations and circumstances, peace is always better than trying to prove that point, because you're going to be going back and forth, whether it's with a person, whether it's with a situation, circumstance, whether it's with an environment, whatever. You're going to be going back and forth, and you're going to find yourself in this place of turmoil, in this place of discomfort, and you're going to see that you grow roots of unforgiveness and roots of bitterness. And you know, some people that I may have talked to in the past, or even talking about myself, like, sometimes we have these deep emotional roots that we don't even want to tap into. Like, we don't even want to confront those roots. Like, we don't even want to get on our knees to try to pull those roots up, because we don't like feeling vulnerable for some of us. And I'm not saying this for all, but for some of us, I'm going to just use myself. I'm going to talk about me like I always do. I'm going to talk about me. And sometimes I don't like being vulnerable. And let's say I've been working on things like for years, for like over 10 years already. But sometimes when it comes to our emotions, we don't want to dig into things too deep, because we begin to feel like the feelings become so real when you start digging up those roots. So let's say if you had rejection issues, abandonment issues, if you had what's the word I'm looking for? Like, if you were abused in any type of way, you know, you begin to feel those emotions that you had. And I know, like, sometimes we can be so attached to the little guy in us, like that little boy in us, that 7-year-old boy, that 6-year-old boy, that 10-year-old boy, that 13-year-old boy. And for girls too, like, we can be in touch with the 5-year-old us, the 10-year-old us, the 8-year-old us, the 15-year-old us, and we can feel what she feels, or we can feel what he feels, as if we were that person again. And so our peace becomes tampered with when we become vulnerable, and we don't like communicating that vulnerability because we're exposed. But when you realize and say, you know what, I think that I want to live in a place of peace and deal with myself versus trying to deal with the other person and pointing the finger at the other person. I'm going to deal with me first. I'm going to talk to me first. I'm going to go write down some things about me, and then I'm going to talk about the situation, and then I can communicate what I need to communicate to or about the other person, because you've had time to allow yourself to process things. You've allowed yourself to feel. And so I'm not saying that you can't be in connection with your emotions, and we ought to. However, what's our response after we felt how we felt? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we will always love that little girl and that little boy that's on the inside of us, but at the same time, we're older now. You know, and for those of you who may be still here, like you can go back to a place where you were younger and still feel those emotions, still feel those vibes, still think how you thought when you were there, because you have not overcome them. You have not allowed yourself to relax. You've not trusted yourself and saying, you know what, I'm good with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand that happened to me, but I'm not going to live there no more. I'm not going to reside in that place anymore. And you know, just like I remember talking to someone some time ago, and we were talking about how like celebrities or people with a whole lot of money, like wealthy people, how they may have like a vacation home here, they may live in their home there, and we may live there. That's the same way that we are as people. And regardless of the physical homes or whatever the case may be, as people, we have these different places in which we live, and those different places in which we live is in our heart. Like, we have these emotional houses or apartments or condos or lofts that we have in our heart, and we live there when we want to. So you wonder why you can stay mad for so long, you can hold a grudge for so long, you can feel a certain type of way towards a person, an environment, towards a situation, circumstance, like a place, you know what I'm saying, or words that you may have heard. You can go back and live there, you know. So say like you may be in a relationship, or you may have bad communication with a family member or whatever the case may be, and you may be angry, and that place that you have built in your heart is the place in which you reside, because you refuse to become vulnerable. You refuse to expose yourself. And if you need help, then there are resources in the earth for you to get help on how to overcome emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, the psychological abuse, like spiritual abuse. There are resources out here, but the reason why we don't is because we have this lack of trust. You know, we have this trust, like, oh yeah, someone's going to disappoint me again, somebody's going to hurt me again, somebody's going to make me feel sad again. And we have to realize too, and I'm not saying that people can't make you, or their actions cannot result in them being manipulative or them being facetious or any kind of way, but if we allow somebody else to impact us, we allow them to do that. If we allowed our feelings or our emotions or our mind or our physical to spiral into it, and I'm not talking about like sexual abuse, I'm not talking about no abuse like that, you know, because people, we do have some crazy people, but when I'm talking about like I'm talking about emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and like spiritually, like if we allow the words and the doings of other people, like we allow it, if we permit their behavior, if we permit their words to affect us in a certain type of way, we gave permission to that. And so we need to give ourselves permission to heal. We need to give ourselves permission to overcome, to be better people. And that takes time. So girl, give yourself time. Give yourself time. And that is totally okay. You can become vulnerable at your own pace, and that is an expression of you becoming whole, you getting that inner healing that you need to be able to conquer situations moving forward, you know. And that comes like certain arguments, certain communications that you may have with certain conversations. Like, you don't need to give your ear over to it. You don't even need to have a response. Why? Because we tend to have this response based off of our own need, and we're not in, like, when you have arguments or heated discussion, from what I call it, you're in a place of proving your own point versus highlighting what needs to be highlighted to create this aerial view of the situation that occurred, and figuring out a resolution on how to move forward and then operating from that solution. But sometimes we just so like we aren't mindful of the inner peace that we have. And peace is being that calmness, you know, as being mindful. We are not mindful of the environment that we want to create internally or externally. So that's why you find yourselves in these positions where it's like, you know what, I hate that person, I can't stand that person, I hate that place, I'm not going that place because the last time I went there this happened, and I don't want to receive that gift, and I don't like Valentine's Day, and I don't like Christmas, and I don't like that. You find yourself in that place because of the different houses and storehouses that you built in your heart. And so if you just allow yourself to heal and not say, oh no, I'm not trusting this person, I don't have trust, I'm not doing this with that person, I'm not going to trust this person, I'm not going to trust that, I'm not going this way because I don't trust that, and this, that, and the third. When you have trust issues like that, you prove your point most times as to why you're not going to do something, and it comes from the seed of your emotions and the things that you think, versus if you allow yourself, if you release yourself, like, and that's the thing, sometimes we would rather be caged, and we would rather live in captivity before we live free, because you think that the things that you hold on to is what is going to save you, what is going to always be your comfort, and it's not, because in essence you're actually laying in a bed in a bed of needles, you know, and so you think that it's comfortable, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like you're laying in a nest of nothing but like twigs that's sticking you and poking at you and things like, and you tend to want to live your life like that versus releasing yourself and saying, you know what, I'm a trustful, and I'm not saying that you go out and trust every person, but you go out and you trust yourself first. Allow yourself to trust fall with yourself so that you can begin to process and heal, versus, you know, you getting into these situations and these circumstances and you tend to try to prove what's more important to you versus seeing the perspective of somebody else. And so let's go forward in knowing what battles we're going to step into and those that we're going to step out of. So remember, protect your peace and not your point.